So, pass, your rock wall, no problem. Your lower density glass wall, no problem. Fail, expanded extruded polystyrene. PIR, PUR, phenolic foam. Polyester, and as I say, the higher density glass wall. Not relevant, because you can't test for it, a sarking material. Face glass wool and face rock wool. So like the blanket is non-combustible, but when we stick the facing on, it is no longer non-combustible. I can do hours on this stuff. Hello?
I don't understand why sarking material is not relevant.
They're not relevant.
It can't be not relevant simply because you can't test it.
Well, did you see the Four Corners documentary about the combustible cladding? It was probably a couple of years ago now. There's a very interesting bit in there where a couple of senators are grilling someone from the industry, and they were basically saying, are you saying this standard is not fit for purpose? The standard is the standard we've got. We operate under the regulatory framework of the BCA and other things. That's really all we can do. We're not trying to be cagey. We can't really test to standard. We should all be lobbying to get the BCA to make these things tougher, certainly. I suppose maybe that's what 5113 is looking at doing, looking at whole assemblies, but we can only work within the framework that's available to us now. I mean, CSR, we're happy to make things tougher, certainly. But the reason I say that is because, to quote directly from the standard, you can't use it for that thing. Now, the question you're asking is, why isn't there a standard for non-combustibility? That there isn't, and it would probably be good, but the thing is, none of these things would actually pass these very thin membranes. Have you looked at the new BCA, by the way? There's a section that I'm going to touch on later on, but it's a very good point. Can I carry on? Yeah, because it's a very good question, because I'm not trying to be cute when I say the standard says we don't have to, so it's irrelevant. It does say that, but obviously you're thinking, but it's going in a building, so it can't be irrelevant, and that's a valid point.
Yep, it actually answered the question.
I know.
You can't say it's not relevant, because it is relevant.
I can say it's not relevant because it's not relevant to the standards that are called up in the Building Code of Australia, which is the regulatory framework that we have to work under. I'm not trying to be cute, I'm really not. We can't be expected to test the things that aren't required just to disprove a product can be used, because, we live in a capitalist society, that's not really going to fly. But you're right, the building code perhaps is something that, because the new, spoiler alert, my penultimate slide is going to talk about this, but basically they're now saying, don't worry about non-combustibility for sarkings, providing it's got a flammability index of less than or equal to 5, which they all have, and they're less than a millimetre thick. So they've completely removed it, but more of that later. So this is what you will see on a data sheet. So on the back of this is our acoustic guard. There's a little statement that talks about things like, various other testing that's been done, and it says it's a non-combustible material. But obviously, you're not going to believe that, nor should you. If you need it for your certifier, give me a shout. I just need to watermark the document with the project name and that sort of thing, just in case it falls into the wrong hands. 1530 Part 2 Flammability Index. The question is, how does this pliable, thin sheet or woven material behave when exposed to a naked flame? What happens to this thing? So, as I've just said, this is pliable, thin sheet, woven material. So this is our sarkings and construction membranes. And what we're looking at here is, we set fire to the specimen, and we're looking at how far does the flame propagate, how fast does the flame propagate, and how much heat is generated in the specimen. And all these three are then put together to give us a single number flammability index. Now, and BCA specification C110 looks at needing less than or equal to 5 for sarking type materials. So, on one of our data sheets there, for example, it says flammability index low, less than or equal to 5. And you might be thinking, why don't we put the number? Because we don't have to, because the designation is less than or equal to 5. It's also 0 for, I forget the wording, fire exits and fire control rooms, things like that, but I think you'd probably do a construction that didn't have things like that in it anyway. We do have some that are 0, but that is a much smaller group. But everyone, unfortunately, our competitors would be the same. Anything you'd use in a wall wrap would be less than or equal to 5. That Performer product, XHD, is a 4mm or 8mm foam product with foil on both sides. There are other ones in the market that are the same. I'm sure they'll have similar results, but their data sheet should contain that information. Now, that one at the bottom, of course, will not satisfy the new requirements when they come out in 60-odd sleeps or whatever it is. There's the test link. 1530 Part 3, early fire hazard properties. How does this construction component behave when it's exposed to a naked flame? This applies to all building materials and components. The standard measures the tendency to ignite, the tendency to propagate flame, the heat released once ignition has occurred, and the tendency to release smoke. Obviously, they're all big factors in the propagation of a fire and the effect on occupants. The objective is to assess fire hazard properties of wall linings during early growth phase of a fire, and also provide a ranking assessment of potential fire hazards between a range of materials used in building. Once again, on the back of the data sheet, 1530 Part 3, 0001, polyester, 000021. We have done various tests on our unfaced glass wool, and whether it's light and fluffy ceiling bat, a medium industrial board, that's Supertel 32 kilo, or a super dense 130 kilo, they're all 0001 unfaced. The facing adds an extra layer, obviously, no pun intended, an extra layer of potential numbers, because it depends on the facing that's adhered to them. So that is available. That's based on an opinion from the CSIRO based on lots of testing. That's available as required for a project. But basically, we can test anti-con. So we can test the blanket for 1530 Part 1, but not the finished product. We could do the sarking or the facing only to 1530 Part 2, which is the flammability index. We can do the two together, as in stuck together, the way it would be installed, adhered together to 1530 Part 3. And then when we talk about group numbers, then we can also do the group number assessment based on that finished product too. 1530 Part 4, fire resistance levels. How long before a structure fails due to fire? A bit like acoustics, glass insulation on its own doesn't give you an FRL. It's the short version. So I'm just going to talk about stuff. This is more my friends at Gyproc, but you know we're all part of one glorious family, so I'm happy to do that. 1530 Part 4, fire resistance levels. This is what a lot of people mean when they say fire resistance, obviously. Results are published in a timed fire rating referred to as the FRL, fire resistance level, and there's a requirement based on where this bit of the building is, what type of building, all that sort of thing. The results of this standard are dependent on the system as a whole. So I can't give you a particular FRL bat because it all depends on the other things in the wall. Actually, the sad truth, it actually depends on the linings, not on the insulation. As much as it hurts me to say that, I could never lie to you. So in general, insulation products by themselves do not have an FRL. So insulation in a wall, it's the liner, or the masonry component. It's not got much to do with the insulation. If we're filling a gap, say between the top of a wall and a roof, top of a party wall, we do have a test for that, which is a 1530 Part 4 test for one of our rock wall products with a bit of compression, 1, 2 or 3 layers high. We just have to be careful because that test is a particular arrangement, which is a hole in Hebel to give you the FRL. If you've got a lightweight wall with a metal roof, we just need to make sure that certifier and fire engineer are happy with what's been provided. And I suggest that's fairly common in the industry. So this is the 1530 Part 4 test rig. Let's look at where the numbers are put together. First number is structure. This example, the system will not collapse under load within 90 minutes. You can also get the one at the bottom, the dash 1990s, if it's non-structural. So for load-bearing walls, you use the top number. For non-load-bearing, you use the bottom one.